KPIX's gift to the community for decades. As the new year began, I looked back into the dusty archives, and the best sources inform me that Mosaic first hit the air in 1980, which means that we are now in the 38th year of enjoying KPIX's wonderful gift to the community that gives a presence and a voice to diverse faith perspectives in the San Francisco Bay Area. So on behalf of the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of San Francisco and the Catholic people of our three counties, thank you to KPIX management and to all the KPIX staff who help us create this show each month. So today, we have with us two experts on the importance of sharing and the rewards of giving. After this brief break, please rejoin us for an interesting conversation on today's Mosaic. Good morning. Welcome to Mosaic. We're here with two people from the Archdiocese of San Francisco who do important work in its mission. And let me introduce them to you. On my left is Florian Romero. She is Director of Stewardship at the Archdiocese of San Francisco. To her left is Rod Linhares.
That's right.
I'm saying it right,
Yes.
Linhares.
Yes.
And he is called Director of Development. And these two departments work together and collaborate. At the deep basis of what work they do is that important thing called money. They both have to deal with that, but more importantly, they deal with developing the relationships that can sustain and support the Catholic mission. And this means individual relationships. So Rod, you're Director of Development, and maybe you can define for us what development means.
Well, John, thank you. At its core, really, development is about relationships, as you kind of touched on. It's I like to define it as kind of creating and even deepening relationships between persons and a particular organization. Fundraising is a little part of it. Fundraising is a derivative. But even that, I look at fundraising as really giving people who have a relationship the opportunity to invest in something about which they care quite deeply.
Sure. Okay. That sounds great. And how long have you been with the Archdiocese?
I've been with the Archdiocese about 7 months, started in early June of 2017.
I know you've been a great presence around the office, and I hear that in your first couple of months you visited every parish in the Archdiocese?
I did indeed. Well, virtually every parish. I actually, as a little backstory, I was born and raised and went to school in the Archdiocese.
Right.
Born in Pacifica, grew up in Pacifica, member of St. Peter's. Now I live in St. Gregory's Parish in San Mateo. Been there about 25 years. And so it was a treat for me, really, to be kind of on the other side now and visit all these parishes in our three counties that I had heard so much about. It was just a fabulous experience, very educational from a professional standpoint, and personally a wonderful experience as well.
And a kind of model of what your principle is, I think. You don't come in and sit in the office and do stuff. You went out and built relationships. So tell us a little bit about what you saw.
It was very, very interesting. First of all, it was a great joy and honor to finally be in a position to represent and advocate the ministries of the Archdiocese. And in going out and kind of learning about the parishes, there were really about three things that kind of emerged. One was I heard a lot from the pastors and the office staffs about how we could better serve and assist them, both within development and the Chancery, the Archdiocese office as a whole. I also learned about better ways in which we could kind of communicate the needs of the Archdiocese, most notably with regard to the appeal, how we could more effectively communicate what it is the appeal was getting to.
Okay.
And probably most significantly, I was just overwhelmed by all the wondrous good works that go on in all our parishes. Having born and raised, as I said, in the Archdiocese, I did not know all the wonderful things that go on at our various parishes in terms of outreach. It's overwhelmingly impressive.
Good people here. Now, Florian, you have a much longer history, I think, in the Archdiocese.
Yes, I've been this is my 10th year working for the Archdiocese of San Francisco. I originally worked, I am still with the Office of Development, half-time, and half-time is with Stewardship.
So a new initiative, or a fairly new initiative called Stewardship. But let me ask about you first. You have an exotic background. Rod's a local boy. So where are you from, and how did you get here?
I was born and raised in the Philippines, and I moved to America when I was 23 years old. That's about
A couple of years ago.
quite a number of years, yes. So I originally moved from, state to state until about 20 years ago. My husband was assigned to Northern California, and this is where we've stayed and hope to stay forever.
Very nice. And I know you've lived elsewhere, had a career in advertising, business management, and so on, and now working for stewardship in the Archdiocese. Can you define what stewardship is?
Well, stewardship is actually a spiritual transformation, and this is why we focus on scriptures and faith formation. It's more about realizing that or accepting that everything that we have in our lives is actually a gift from God, and out of gratitude we give back to God. It is our responsibility or our response to God's generosity to us.
Once you hear the word, and it is an unusual word, I think. I mean, I don't know if most Catholics are aware of it, but you immediately think of the New Testament, and Jesus frequently talking about stewards, the steward who understood what was supposed to happen, the steward who did the wrong thing. There's a clear message that we are, in some sense, that Jesus at least sees us as stewards of God's gifts, not as necessarily owners and disposers. It doesn't end with us.
Exactly. Even in the book of Genesis, Adam and Eve, they were the stewards of the earth.
From the beginning.
So from the beginning, this is, I give this to you, but you're supposed to manage this and give it back with a return. And that's out of your gratitude and out of love. That's your response to the gift that was given to you.
And we'll get into details of how you do that, but I found in the Catholic Catechism some information about this notion of stewardship, and I wanted to read it to you. And it comes here under Jesus' commandment, love your neighbor as yourself.
Yes.
And it says here, the Catholic Catechism, the right of private property does not do away with the original gift of the earth to the whole of mankind. The universal destinations of goods remains primordial. And the ownership of any property makes its holder a steward of providence, with the task of making it fruitful and communicating its benefits to others.
Correct.
It's right there. Very interesting.
Exactly.
So a little bit about what stewardship is for our diocese.
This is, we have just started stewardship in our diocese in 2016.
Okay.
We have 6 parishes that have converted to stewardship. Again, stewardship is a way of life. It's not a program, and that's why we say it's a conversion. It's a conversion of the minds and the spiritual mindset of people. So we have right now the 6 parishes that we work with. Originally, we were working with a consultant, and now we have our own smaller program that we run, which I run with Father Pedret, who is our moderator of the Curio. We run this conversion programs with, right now there's All Souls and St. Augustine and Star of the Sea that we are working with, and St. Veronica's that we're working with.
Okay, so we'll find out more in detail about the principles and practice of stewardship, and we'll take a break right now. After this brief break, please rejoin us, and we'll find out about development, stewardship, and the universal destination of human goods. Hello and welcome back to Mosaic. We're talking with Florian Romero, Director of
Stewardship.
Director of Stewardship, a new word to me, and Rod Linhares, Director of Development at the Archdiocese. Now, they work in tandem on similar projects. Rod, you mentioned that you had gone to a lot of the parishes in your first few months to make relationships. Florian's talking about stewardship as a way of life, sharing of your gifts with others. You've seen some examples of that, haven't you?
I've seen some extremely vivid examples of that, John. It's been really inspiring to me. Just a couple that are of note, and I wasn't aware of any of these prior to my little journeys. St. Anthony of Padua down in Redwood City, every day, 6 days a week, feeds 700 people, no questions asked. Incredible. St. Charles in San Carlos, for 25 years, they've gone to Mexico and build homes. St. Rita up in Fairfax, tracts. They've gone to Guatemala for over a decade and worked with the people there. There's tutoring programs involved with persons in Marin City. So it's really a very, very vivid and vibrant demonstration of people sharing their time and their talents. And it was inspiring to me, and I think it's kind of a great source of pride for all of us. It's wonderful.
Yes. And Florian, you mentioned that this stewardship initiative is somewhat new. I think the concept seems to be somewhat new, at least to me, but you have a historical model how this works?
Yes, there is actually a model, Wichita, Diocese of Wichita, who the entire diocese is
Wichita,
a steward,
Kansas.
Wichita, Kansas,
Okay.
Wichita. They have the entire diocese. They've been doing this for the last 40 years. In 2015, the Archbishop sent 3 of us to Wichita to see what this stewardship way of life is all about. And we were inspired when we came back because we've observed a parish where they have Mass and they have people standing room only in church, and all the way, it's filled with people all the way to the vestibule. They have 17 parishes that have 24/7 adoration. They have also, just like what we have here, but on a bigger scale, Lord's Diner, which feeds 2,500 people dinner every single day of the year, and that's run by 70 volunteers any given day. Their volunteerism is very high. They have a parish that has about 2,000 volunteers in one parish. So they're really very engaged. I mean, the parishioners are very engaged in the parish, and they're very welcoming. You go into a parish, they don't know you. They all come to you and say, "Hey, you're new. Oh, what's your name? Would you like me to invite you to lunch?" And you all of a sudden you become a sense of attachment to the parish.
Yes.
Living their life as Catholics, it's not, going to church is not to them an obligation. It's their way of life. It seems to be part of their DNA.
Okay.
So
good habits were learned, yeah.
yes.
And continued. And it sounds like, how do I put it, Rod, you talked about giving people relationships in which they can invest themselves. It's part of what development does. This also sounds like, because there's money involved in these good works that are being done, so I'm wondering how money shows up in the picture of stewardship. Is it people tithing and so on?
Yes.
I'm not guessing that the Diocese of Wichita is a rich diocese full of big givers.
Well, so there are the 3 focuses of stewardship. When it's the core of stewardship is being grateful. So when you're grateful, what do? The thing that you do is to share. You share your time. You build your relationship with Christ and God by praying. That's sharing your time. You apportion. When you tithe 10% of your time, like an hour a day, into prayer and building that relationship. And then you share your talents by volunteering. And of course, your treasure. When you're grateful, you're sharing what you have financially. I mean, you cannot hold but share something that's a part of you, which is your church is a part of you. So you're generously giving to the church. And in Wichita, they tithe, that's 10%.
Oh, okay.
And so they give 10% of their income to the church. Then the church gives 10% of their income to the diocese. The diocese shares 10% of their income to the bigger church.
And I understand one of the benefits of this ground level participation buy-in, if you want to call it that, by every person in every parish, is that they fund their school system without having to charge tuition. More Catholic goods and benefits are available to everyone because of this. Well, what do you call it? It's an investment. It's a commitment. It sounds wonderful. And this is something we'd want to be trying to establish in the Archdiocese of San Francisco?
Well, that's something that we would like to achieve, but that's not something we expect to happen overnight. But some of our stewardship parishes now are saying we will offer free faith formation classes because there is something, just giving back to the community. We're going to now support faith formation for the children.
Yeah.
Because when we know that when the children are formed, that's where we get seminarians, that's where we get vocations, because they're formed at a very young age. And that's why in Wichita, they have about 58 seminarians in a population of 100,000 Catholics.
Yeah, so I mean, as Rod was pointing out, the vibrancy and the generosity of these parishes is remarkable. And if you tune into that and, as you said, convert to a stewardship model, things could even be greater than they are. But you see a lot of generosity, and I think you told me the feeling of satisfaction about being part of a community that knows it's generous and knows it's being useful. This is what I heard from you when you told me about this.
Yeah, there's just such a great sense of pride among the parishioners in that they are, as you say, a part of something that is kind of bigger than their kind of geographic community, if you will.
Right.
And that's something that I think, as I've learned, as I've gone throughout the Archdiocese and spoken to or with persons at certain parishes, hearing about what goes on at their brethren parishes, beyond what they do themselves, really kind of infuses all of us and all of them, I think, with that sense of pride and being part of something that's grander and bigger and doing good.
Amen. Okay, we're going to take a short break. We'll come back and talk more about development, stewardship, and how to make them work. We can show you. Yeah. Hello and welcome back to Mosaic. We're finishing our conversation with Florian Romero and Rod Linhares of the Archdiocese of San Francisco. And you both talked about important new initiatives. Florian, you're in charge of the initiative in stewardship.
Yes.
And it's a conversion to a stewardship way of life. It's nice you say that, because I think Catholics tend to think they're already converted. But there's more conversion to be done, I think. So, and Rod, you're talking about, you're new at the job, making new relationships, building relationships, and showing opportunities for investment in true value, spiritual value and physical value. So maybe you could tell us both, Rod, you first, about what your current initiatives are and how people could get involved.
Well, probably foremost at this time, John, there's a couple of things. And when the Archbishop's Circle is something that began about 18 months ago, and it's really an entity in which persons can give money to projects and initiatives that are set forth by the Archbishop himself, things that he deems to be priorities. In this current year, there are such things as giving to seminarians, a Hispanic school of leadership, stewardship is one of them, things of that sort. And then going forth, he's looking at such things as an assistance fund for deacons, marketing for Catholic schools, things like that, as well as the seminarians. So it's always going to be a blend between current needs and what he projects to be a future desire.
And I've noticed that the Archbishop Circle, this new initiative, has its own quarterly newsletter, very interesting stories in it, which goes to the members of the Circle. And on our topic of satisfaction in giving, stories by people about what it means to them to be a giver of this kind. They really, really take it seriously and enjoy it.
They do enjoy it, and they enjoy being with their fellow Circle members. They enjoy the camaraderie, the sense of spirituality. It's really been a fulfilling experience we've learned from the members of the Circle.
That's excellent.
I guess our other priority would be currently the Archdiocesan Annual Appeal, which just kicked off about 2 weeks ago. And it has a number of priorities that I'm sure many of the parishioners might be familiar with in a general sense. But there's one story I really enjoy telling, because I think it crystallizes the tremendous benefits of the appeal. Some of the monies from last year's appeal went to what's called the Makerspace Initiative, which very simply brings science and technology to life.
In the grammar school.
In the grammar schools. And I went down to Good Shepherd and Pacifica just to observe this in action. I was in a class of fourth graders, 9 and 10-year-olds, and they were making robots out of a plastic cup and a motor and a battery and a wire, and they were going around. It was fascinating stuff, and the kids were entranced. So I'm asking asking some of the kids, do you like this class? What do you like about it? They're all saying, of course they do, yes, yes. So I say to this one little boy, do you like this class? Yes. I said, well, why do you like it? And he just looks at me as if it was the most absurd question he's ever heard. He says, because this is way better than school. And I think that just encapsulated perfectly the success of that program in bringing science, which many of us, when you're studying out of a book, can find to life. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's where the Archdiocesan appeal money goes.
That's very nice. Very nice little example. And Florian, on your initiative for stewardship, introducing the concept, introducing the practice, what is up with you? What can people do to learn more?
Well, actually, we have seminars and workshops that are scheduled for the month of February, and we would like to invite people to come. We have one in English, because we have Spanish and English,
Of
but
course.
we have one in English,
Yeah.
which is called Living a Grateful and Generous Life. If they would like to know more about stewardship or know more about the workshop, they could give me a call. My number is 415-614-5537, and I will give them all the information about the workshop, and more details will be available on the website too.
And I wonder if people were to get the list of stewardship parishes that are currently practicing it, they could visit and see what goes on at that parish, see if it's something that appeals to them. Is that possible?
Yes, we are working on the website right now, so the list will be there, but again, I can enumerate that
Sure.
All Souls in South San Francisco, St. Augustine's in South San Francisco, St. Cecilia's in San Francisco, and Holy Name and Star of the Sea.
Okay. And just to finish up, Rod, your website is rich with detail for people who want to know all about what development is, all about what giving is, and ways in which they can give. You've mentioned the appeal and others, but you have planned giving, bequests, complete information as to how you can take part. In fact, I run the website and I know what's on it, and there's this which people will enjoy. If you come to the website and you're looking to find Rod or Florian, you're looking for development, you're looking for stewardship, actually at the top there's a button, and the button says giving. And as we've established today, I think that button should also say receiving, because the rewards of that kind of giving are huge, as you're pointing out.
And beyond those of giving in many ways.
Thank you so much for being here, for
Thank you
sharing your
for having
expertise
us.
with us. And please do visit the Archdiocesan website and find out all there is to know about development and stewardship. Thank you for being with us on this Mosaic.